Hello and welcome to the Middlemen this week. It's a great pleasure to kick off today's show as I bid you to be a part of today's episode with the juror from Rabbi Evans Philip, borrowing the cosmic letters of William Shakespeare in wondering how the news came to hang so firmly on the neck of the Efcc with his case titled Efcc, the case of a Daniel comes to judgment. Now we have juror Cyril Abako, whom he will be investigating the sincerity of purpose in the claim by the federal government to deploy satellite assets against insecurity. I will be looking at why female genital mutilation is still such a vogue for Nigerians despite the push to end this primitive practice. Just stay with us. Welcome back. My case. Female genital mutilation or cutting in Nigeria, popularly known as FGM. The data on FGM-C prevalence in Nigeria highlights both significant progress and challenges in addressing the practice. The overall prevalence has notably decreased from 29.6% in 2008 to 19.5% in 2018. Particularly among younger women aged 0 to 14, where the prevalence has fallen to 13.7%. However, the persistence of FGM in some regions and demographic calls for a focused and multifaceted approach to eliminate the practice. According to my key findings, regional and state disparities, FGM is most prevalent in the southeast and southwest, with Imo State showing a staggering 61.7% prevalence, while states like Lagos, Kano, and Oyo have higher absolute numbers of affected women due to their larger populations, and the states with the highest percentage rates must be prioritized for intervention. Now, if we move into the urban and rural areas, although rural areas have historically seen higher FGM prevalence, and recent data shows that an increasing prevalence in urban areas have increased with 24.2% of urban women aged between 15 to 49 undergoing FGM, compared to the 15.6% in rural areas. Additionally, more girls in rural areas between around 21.1% undergo FGM than in urban areas, where about 16.3%, signaling a shift in practice patterns. Then we move into the ethnicity and religion. FGM is practiced by all ethnic groups, with the Yoruba ethnic group having the highest prevalence, and that is total about 34.7%. Then we move to the Catholic women. They are more likely to have undergone FGM with about 24.5% compared to other religious groups. However, subgroups like the TIV do not practice FGM at all. Now we'll go to the education and socioeconomic status that influences the relationship between education and FGM, and it is paradoxical in Nigeria. While it is generally expected that higher education correlates with lower prevalence, data reveals that women with primary education have a higher prevalence with about 25.6% than those with no formal education, getting to about 17.2%. Girls born to wealthier and educated mothers are less likely to be cut, indicating that addressing socioeconomic inequalities and increasing educational outreach may contribute to further reductions. Then trends over time have given a clear trend towards a decline in FGM, especially among young generations. However, older generations aged between 45 to 49 still show a high prevalence, bringing us to a 31.0%, emphasizing the need for intergenerational change. Recommendations to addressing the FGM in Nigeria. It is important that we target high prevalence states. Special attention must be given to places like Imo, Ekiti, Ebonyi, and other states with the highest prevalence rates. And both the grassroots interventions and policy enforcement should be strengthened in these regions. Now, urban awareness and campaign with the rising prevalence in urban areas, it is important and is essential to develop targeted awareness programs as urban populations may not be as familiar with anti-FGM messaging compared to rural communities. Now we'll get into community engagement, which plays a crucial role because continued efforts to engage community leaders, including religious and cultural figures, to challenge and denounce the practice would since influence FGM and its prevalence among specific ethnic and religious groups. Community-based interventions are critical. The role of education and economic empowerment programs should be expanded to promote education for girls and young women, particularly in regions with FGM rates. Additionally, empowering women economically can reduce the practice as wealthier women tend to cut fewer of their daughters. And monitoring and evaluation, ongoing data collection and monitoring should be strengthened to track progress, identify gaps, and tailor interventions accordingly. In conclusion, while Nigeria has made notable strides in reducing FGM, the practice remains ingrained in certain regions and demographics. A comprehensive, region-specific and culturally sensitive approach incorporating education, community engagement and socio-economic empowerment is crucial to eradicating FGM in the country. Now, the tragic death of Etehiwe, a young woman forced to undergo female genital mutilation after complications during childbirth, raises pressing concerns about the persistence of such harmful cultural practices. Despite her earlier escape from the village to avoid FGM, she was coerced into returning, leading to her fatal ordeal. Her case sparks the question, why in the 21st century are certain Nigerian communities still adhering to traditions like FGM, despite their known dangers and global calls for eradication? These topics open a broader discussion about cultural preservation versus human rights. Why do some Nigerian societies continue FGM, even as awareness of its physical and psychological harm grows? How can modern efforts in education, law enforcement, and community outreach dismantle such ingrained practices? Should cultural traditions that endanger life and dignity be allowed to persist? And if not, what is the most effective path towards change? My verdict. The persistence of FGM in the 21st century poses profound ethical and social questions. Why do certain communities still embrace such practices when the physical and psychological damage is well documented? In many regions, FGM is perceived as a rite of passage, a necessary step to ensure a woman's purity and readiness for marriage. These beliefs are reinforced by elders, often in the name of tradition and honor, even though they violate the fundamental rights of women and girls. The toll of this practice, both immediate and long-term, far outweighs any cultural justifications, leading to lifelong complications and tragedy, in some cases, death. This brings us to the core question. How can such entrenched practice still exist in modern Nigeria, a country with a growing body of laws against FGM? Remember, the 2015 Violence Act Against Persons Prohibition, VAPP Act criminalizes FGM, yet enforcement remains lax in many rural areas where traditional beliefs overshadow legal mandates. Combined with a lack of education, perpetuates its cycle of abuse. What role should the government, civil society, and local communities play in eradicating FGM? And how can the momentum towards change grow, especially in remote areas where these practices thrive? Emefia's death is a call to action, a demand for change in the cultural norms that prioritize women's health.
This case is important. It's important to the extent that we have abandoned the law against violence against persons, only to uphold our traditions and customs. And this is not only with regards to female mutilation.
Female genital mutilation.
Female genital mutilation, not only related to that. If you look at the Child Rights Act, in some part of the country, we have elevated child marriage, even when the Child Rights Act says you should not marry anyone who's not 18. And all that. People still go ahead to turn their cultural practice against the law and get away with it in the long run. Now, in this case, I'm surprised that Imo State is a highly educational state. You understand? And then to fall in this bracket and to benchmark it with Benue State, which is not as highly educated as, and then to see that the prevalence in Imo State is high. And then, so it tells you that perhaps the education we acquire is not strong enough to repress our cultural practices. Because education is supposed to be light, but when culture and tradition now takes the front seat, and our education is put at the back seat, that means our education must be called to question. And look at it, from these traditional practices don't even consider the medical implication of these things. A woman's body is naturally formed by the Creator to be that way. Some persons now say that one of the reasons they give is that it leads to promiscuity. It leads to this, it leads to that. Without scientific backing, just belief system, just prejudice, and sometimes just have belief, which at the end of the day,
superstitious belief
that are not proven through scientific conclusions. Okay, so I believe that with a law, because most states to their practices are not domesticated, that violence against prevention against persons, in 2015, it came up at that time with the Cybercrime Act. Cybercrime Act is going quite very well against the other one. It is the same law that also have shown us the way that not only that a woman can be raped, but a woman can rape a man. That's okay, that have expanded our criminal jurisprudence in a way. So I think that the solution to all this boils primarily to your verdict that, why should we have this in the 21st century? In places where these things are practiced, perhaps the government will need to come up with a stringent enforcement unit. Maybe this is the time to go to court. Just like looking at the beginning of the expression. Did that case and ask for a tax.
I agree with that thought.
Maybe a tax force. Yes. A tax force against this genital mutilation is required at this stage, because when we have laws that are dormant, the only way to activate it is to go to court, let the government make a pronouncement, and set up a tax force that will go from house to house. Then the governor should cooperate. The attorney generals of these respective states will advise their governors the right way to put an end to that nonsense.
Okay. Because I was going to say that, you literally took that point off of me. I was going to say that anywhere you have government living up to its expectation in the fullest, a lot of social ills will be on the back foot. As we speak, I know of people who have said that in Lagos, there is what, now borrowing your term, loosely speaking, we could refer to as a cultural task force that goes from house to house to say, you're from our side. You have a girl now. She must do FGM. Yes. In fact, they even go as far as speak, not necessarily to persuade you, but as a warning to say you must bring in Lagos. You must bring
Lagos
your girl.
I was surprised.
Yes, in Lagos, say bring your daughter. So bring her to where we are going to.
I don't know why I'm surprised, because I was born and brought up here. I'm Igbo, but I've never experienced.
I'm not even talking about the Igbo. I was hoping to see that state. They do it to say that's like a cultural task force. They go about.
The origin of that thing is idol worship.
Really?
Yes.
That blood that is shed, you think is for what?
It's a covenant.
When they're cutting that thing, you don't they first of all make prayer before they start whatever it
They
is?
pour libation and
Yes, they do.
chant some.
You may not see everything, but
and go to the atmosphere with you.
Yes, they do.
Before they undertake.
And that part of the woman's body where you're doing that thing is like is the sanctum. So when you when from infanthood you've desecrated that place. How many of them that did female gender mutilation have you seen that have ever amounted to any? Are they not all in the village now?
That are great.
Okay, I know of a lady. I saw her video on Instagram. I think she's a nurse, but she's based in the UK, and she was giving her experience of how she went through this genital mutilation thing, and it affected her. She don't enjoy anything she does with her husband. It's affected her, and in retrospect, or according to the belief, they said, okay, just to help curtail her so she's not promiscuous. But I feel, okay, they're trying to actually achieve a goal, but in the end of achieving the goal, the ladies
are not achieving any goal. That's where we are going. There's no goal they are achieving there other than the point of making. In fact, don't let us go in, but they're not achieving any goal. Now, conversely, there are also those who use under threat of FGM to secure access to leave Nigeria. So that's another.
Okay.
There's also
but that does not diminish the fear.
No, it doesn't. Now there's also something else. The task force may not operate in a linear way, right? Sometimes when children come to school to enroll, we're not about to undertake checks. In India, virginity tests are such a big thing for them.
But their culture is
because culturally they want women to be conservative. So we need to first define how much value we are placing on the woman's body. Then know how far we want to go to protect it. I can tell you that the world over, there are many laws on women's body, but there's no single on men.
I wanted to say that because
why that inequality?
So I mean that let's ask ourselves what matters to us first.
And what they claim to be.
And if it matters to what, how far are we willing to go to protect women?
And what they claim to be protecting. They are not, at the end of the day, they are not protecting anything.
Who made them the police?
Promiscuity is not a question of the formation of the body of anyone. It's a thing of moral rectitude. It's a thing of
having values.
Yes, you understanding the spiritual and physical implication of your actions. So I do not believe that severing the clitoris is what will now make you all of a sudden overnight. That will guarantee chastity. That's not what will guarantee that. I don't believe so. Much so because there's no scientific understanding of it. They just take razor blade and something that's not to cut people. In some places, after the cutting, they now organize one small useless party. Another play some funny, obscure music.
Okay, now, Jury Syria and Jury Evans. We're looking at it now. Now, the older women are the ones that are actually pushing this because culture is what is learned and is being transferred.
Yes.
They've actually learned this. A lot of them have experienced it and they want to transfer it. Now, at this point where they're transferring it, don't you think, okay, this task force we're saying should go around to get them, should first of all bring them together and make them understand the implications of what they're doing psychologically, first of all, physically, mentally, and even futuristically, because some of them just feel, oh, let us do it now. They have a mindset, they have a particular understanding.
Part of what should have taken care of that would have been, you see, I was saying that if government was working optimally, a lot of these social ills will be on the back foot. How do I mean?
Well, that's why you have local government.
There's something called adult and community education that ought to be a standard department, in local government. Some of my mother's contemporaries were doing at the evening school. They are traders, but in the evening they go to yes. Because you see, so even if you're not teaching FGM in school, when people's minds begin to open up, they do mathematics, do English grammar, and so on, literacy and numeracy, and
when
they alter faculty, they begin to rethink certain things and to question. This even goes to say that People should be able to obtain something up to diploma even in villages. Study logic, study psychology, study a number of things that can
teaches in their language.
No, of course it should be. That should make them begin to rethink and reassess. Because the people you call illiterates can read, in my language we call it Tekken anime now, the hymns and the common prayer, book of common prayer combined. So if they can read those, it means that if you translate these books into, and not just academic texts, literary texts also, Shakespeare and all these great writers, including Achebe and Shoyinka, translate it into Nigerian languages, and then we can also teach them by radio. They should begin to learn. When you do this for the women who don't do FGM, is not because they're educated. Now, are you also aware, Choma, that in this same cultural milieu that we're talking about, these women, they say they're preventing them from becoming promiscuous. Promiscuity, is it the woman that's promiscuous, or she's promiscuous because she has partners? Let the men also that liberate and say, if I'm a promiscuous man, so if he's, because that promiscuity, it is men and women.
Maybe the men should remove their own too.
No.
So yeah.
If we should check,
we'll not cut down what do you call it now? Production.
But if we should check the rate at which women are being educated and the men, even in churches, it is always on the women. And I think we should be training for the boy child too. The same way they sit on the ladies and on the women from as little as 2, 3, and they started putting this.
Yeah, there's a point you laid out here, which has to do with that. It is even the women, the elderly ones, that project it for the incoming ones. I mean, for their children.
Yes.
I find that very, very disconcerting. Why should a woman who went through that experience,
ordeal,
who even understand that this is not a yardstick for promiscuity,
be
the one to be promoting it for the other ones to come and
she knows no.
I said something when I started. Culture is being transferred. We have this thing in Igbo land where they have this August meeting. They go for August meeting. These are some of the things they discuss. Even the Umwada. Okay, we are talking about female genital mutilation. There is the part where some widows go through some things when they lose their husbands. These are the traditions, and a lot of them don't understand these things. They don't understand that the world is evolving.
Yes.
We've left that place, and they hold on to it so much that they even tell you there's a money you need to pay, even when you lose your father or your mother. So it is huge.
You pay money to them.
Kamuzu Banda's country is Malawi, right? Joyce Banda's.
Yeah.
You know, when a woman loses her husband, then they have to purify her by a relative going in to have his way with her as a right. You understand?
Is that purification or contamination? Because they are Christian.
That's why that's why I say, if you throw culture at me, no culture fell from heaven. Cultures evolved because man evolved over time.
In those days, kings who you cannot question. Some kings that were pedophiles in those days, they made sleeping with children.
Yes.
Culture.
Yes.
With this thing like
yes.
The one responsible.
Yes, now. And then it became a norm.
Yeah, because you cannot question them.
Yes.
And because many of them have inadequacy.
Yes. Then they tie it into say there's a repercussion if you don't do it, the gods will it's not true.
If you don't do it, no God will come.
Let me tell you, in my place there was a particular native doctor. Whenever they went to him, he would tell them what he thought they should do. So there was a day he was not feeling well. He had a voice. He said, "Oh yeah, I bet let's hear what." All the while people have been coming. I've been talking to them. Now
let me tell you, culture can be changed.
Can be changed.
Can be changed. One that just said that name was not given to her.
Yes.
There were persons. I mean, even the person interviewing him.
That's Ebuka.
Ebuka was shocked. Could you have put that name together at that time when they were born? And it has become so. She was not laughing. I said, look at today. Many people she didn't want to be identified as Amanda, which is English name.
Because it was not.
She needed to maintain the local name and put it. And before you know it, everybody has adopted. Let me tell you one thing that happened again. In my village, there's this masquerade that when it comes out, you cannot take the road where the masquerade. You have to go and take by pass. So that was the time my dad's younger brother died. And my dad kept us and left Kaduna in the night to come back. My dad was about maybe 12 years in the Air Force then. He was young and brutal. When he steps into the village, people run into their houses. You can't look at him in his eyes. So the vehicle that took my dad from the express road to his father's house was stopped by the masquerade, and my dad was inside. So when they stopped my dad, they said the vehicle cannot move because the masquerade is on the roof. And I came out and cocked his gun and shot the masquerade at the leg. He fell. I shouted, saying, He turned the village upside down. Everybody ran away. They ran away and left their.
No. And the gods did not intervene for them.
And the gods not. From that day till now, people were waiting for my father to die the next day. The next day, he came out.
These things fall apart.
And made trouble with the eldest person in the land and went straight to the king's palace to report everybody. And he shut down the village for 2 days. People were inside their houses. So culture is nothing but what people put together deliberately.
There must be a continuous education to change this.
When he got into the father's house, as a way of setting a mark that is just lost his younger brother, he shot a gun at the roof. He did. If you enter my grandfather, you see that hole as a mark of remembrance. See, because people like to do nonsense.
Yes.
When you have one radical man, which this you call culture,
it will change.
It's really painful. I think this lady already foresaw her death and she was running away from it. But at the end, she fell into the trap and now she's gone. It is really a sad thing, and we hope that our country, Nigeria, our young ladies will grow up and be free from the female genital mutilation. When we return, Juror Cyril Abako has a case hoping Nigeria means what it says, with the latest plan to use satellite tech to fight insecurity. Stay with us.
You're welcome back. My case, Satellite for Security. The Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria Communications Satellite Limited, NIGCOMSAT, Mrs. Jane Agatenidehe, on Wednesday announced the deployment of the country's satellite assets to combat terrorism, banditry, kidnapping, and other forms of criminality. But the declaration seemed criminal in my assessment. Are we just acquiring this capacity, or is it that it was an option willfully neglected for many years? Shouldn't we probe that? There's need to seek clarity on such a sensitive subject. Imagine all the lives lost and everything insecurity has done to Nigeria. Some persons have alluded to rooms of mirrors where all of Abuja, for example, can be seen. What I mean basically is that somebody has said there's a room or rooms in Abuja where the whole city can be seen technologically. If we had that and all this while nothing was done to, check insecurity and all of the ills that are befalling that city, for example, then there are people who have questions to answer. In this modern age, if Nigeria doesn't have such capacity, it would be a shame. Given porous security, what if a hostile enemy or just anyone else did? What's going on in Nigeria? Mrs. Egatini obviously did not give details of the deployment for security reasons, but let me quote her. Very few countries have the kind of assets that we have, especially in the West African sub-region. We've started a journey to provide leadership in the region, and we will surely get there. We're collaborating with the Office of the National Security Advisor, Defense Intelligence, and Space Administration, the Nigerian Police Force, the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, and other stakeholders on the utilization of communications, satellite, and assets to ensure peace throughout the country. End quote. My verdict. The NIGCOMSAT boss said Nigeria had not abandoned the move to procure Satellite 2 in space, stressing that the process was already gaining traction and would be concluded as soon as possible. She said the Nigerian Satellite Week was organized to bring stakeholders together to harness the huge potentials in the satellite industry. I have this to say. Intelligence is key to beating back insecurity, but there is this trend of new appointees saying things that raise so much hot air only to come to nothing eventually. We must use the satellite effectively and reap all the critical benefits there are in making Nigeria a more habitable space now and forever.
Yeah, this case is quite interesting, but the message thereof is quite disappointing because they just mentioned civil defense, NSA, and all. These are all incompetent organizations that they want to collaborate with. That is to tell you that this one is also going to fail. Look at the number of lives we have lost from the hijack of the train from Abuja to Kaduna, to the many lives that have been lost to banditry, insurgency, and all that. And now is the time to launch a satellite. To do what exactly? How many people are left? You want to use a satellite? This is quite too late in the day, given that we have lost almost, in some villages like Agatu, the herdsmen, farmers clash, and all that. Villages have been leveled down all this while. We did not deem it fit. So we have satellites already. We know how these insurgents work. They have intelligence on how they operate. This intelligence are never deployed. Okay? We only believe in this, our foot soldiers, infantry attack or repelling attack of the insurgents, which the armed forces are doing, the soldiers are doing to the best of their ability. But the electronic and the very technical area where you could easily subsume these enemies, you are not deploying it the right way. And if we continue like this, we are going to have a lot of losses. We will not be able to combat this war effectively because now that technology is there to take care of them, what is stopping this country from investing in the full gadgets and use same to clear the way for this country to move forward? What is stopping us from doing that? Some persons have alleged that because they don't want the thing to stop because some people are making money from it. So if some people are making money from it, those who are not making money from it, why can't they come together and ensure that those who are making money from it and the people who are the insurgent and everybody is taken out?
But I beg to disagree at that point, because those who are making money from it, they definitely have a carcass. They definitely have the willpower. They definitely have the backing, more than those who are not making money. So if they are coming for them, definitely they would actually stand against them, because we have laws in this country. But are those who are supposed to actually dance to the tune of the music, which they've actually said, are they dancing to it? That's another thing. So in as much as I said there's a satellite, I'm asking, how much was involved to actually deploy the satellites? Who is it in the budget for 2024? Who are those that are actually supplying these satellites? Who is showing them? Because we know we don't have such equipment in our country, Nigeria. Where is it coming from?
You know, there are some things you need to say when you come into office.
No, we have a satellite already. We have the
It was launched
satellite one, yes. This one is the second one.
That they want to, but they are even with the current one. One time they said it had gone missing in orbit. The one that was floated in China.
Yes, it was launched from China.
Said the thing done lost, but now she's hopeful that we can do something meaningful with what we have, and that what we have, only very few people have it. I'm surprised to hear that.
Only very few people have it, and we're not seeing the impact of the.
That is what I said. This is criminal. If we had this all along.
Only few people have it for where.
Something where you go back. Something, man.
I'm not going to other people's father's farm. So your father's farm is bigger than their own.
The point is this: if we sincerely had this, and bandits had the temerity to go to farms, cut people's necks, put them on spikes,
I still ask them to pay.
Went to Jengebe, went to Kaduna, all this, Torji was to banned, all these things were happening. People were shooting down Air Force planes, jets. The former chief of army staff was, whether it was a plane crash or what, we don't know, but he died. A lot has happened. And Boko Haram people, we are still finding a way to beg them to repent so that we will not punish them again. And yet we have an eye in the air, in the sky, with which we are not able to see these things before they are.
Which no other person have.
Which no other person has.
No.
What do you think?
If I'm trying to talk about this satellite now, I don't want to get angry because if you use your phone,
No anger is allowed in the show.
if you use your phone and you go through Google and you want to find this place, you would see this place.
Yes.
You don't.
With just your
Yes, the technology is on your phone already.
Technology is on your phone.
No.
You will see the pictures.
That's your own phone, not their phone. Please. I don't know.
But what he's saying is,
If
you can get precision with Google.
I
Even that technology is that they got, which nobody has, is Google compliant, because that's what determines location.
By now somebody's app will be doing.
So,
But to be good, you can afford them your phone. Let them begin from there.
I thought that what the satellite can do times 10.
the truth is that technology is all over the place. I don't. This thing that soldiers now have it is not necessary, and making statements on falsehood or talking, delivering speech and all that is not what we need now. What we need is to go to the battlefield and win the war.
Exactly. Do you know?
So if you have not won the war, don't come and deliver speech. Don't tell us what you have that other people don't have. Take that thing, go there
and get the job done. I was wondering how Night Comsat is the one talking about. We are collaborating with the office of the NSA. I hope that Chema, you're able to find your phone and send it to them. It may be Andy, who knows?
No, my phone can be as useful as the satellite about it.
Anyways, we hope that somehow this thing becomes useful for Nigeria and that we can put all of this insecurity behind us. When we come back, a Daniel is come to a judgment. It will be Shakespeare's words, but the voice of the juror from Rabbi Evans Ofeli, who will be checking just how tight the noose has become on the EFCC's neck. This is one case you don't want to miss. Stay with us.
And welcome back to The Middleman. My case. The EFCC. A case of a Daniel comes to judgment. The contention of the plaintiff in suit number SC/178/2023 is that the federal government cannot under any guise control the funds appropriated by houses of assembly of the plaintiff. The plaintiffs are also contesting the constitutionality of the EFCC Act in the light of the decision of the Supreme Court in the case of Mobike versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that the EFCC Act was based on the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, same having not been ratified in line with Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The plaintiffs are therefore asking the Supreme Court to nullify the EFCC, ICPC, NFIU, and the Proceeds of Crime Acts, all rooted in the United Nations Convention and protocols, having not been ratified by the Houses of Assembly of the plaintiffs in line with Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution. Section 12, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution says that no treaty between the federal government or the federation and any other country shall have the force of law except to the extent to which any such treaty has been enacted into law by the National Assembly. 2, the National Assembly may make laws for the federation or any part thereof with respect to matters not included in the executive legislative list for the purpose of implementing a treaty. Subsection 3, a bill for an act of the National Assembly passed pursuant to the provision of subsection 2 of this session shall not be presented to the President for assent and shall not be enacted unless it is ratified by a majority of all the houses of assembly in the Federation. For instance, the Supreme Court found as a fact in the case of Mobike versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria that the EFCC Act is a product of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption. But the position of the plaintiff in the suit is that the EFCC Act, arising from the United Nations Convention, being an item not contained in the exclusive legislative list. Records should have been made to states as stakeholders in the Federation in line with Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution as amended. The 1999 Constitution is very clear on the areas of the National Assembly that it has exclusive preserve to make laws, the areas the state have, and the areas both the National Assembly and the State Assembly share legislative powers. The act in dispute, being rooted in the UN Convention and Protocol, do not fall on any of those categories, as a result of which compliance with the Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution was a mandatory requirement. Failure to comply with Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution before the enactment of the Act was fatal. The defendant to the suit, the Attorney General of the Federation, on the other hand, did not deny that the Act was rooted in the UN Convention, but that the concurrence of the states of the federations as stakeholder was not necessary for the validity of the Act. Now, by this, they meant that compliance with Section 12 of the 1999 Constitution was not necessary for the validity of the Act. This is a strange argument. By this, the defendant also curiously implied that the finding of the Supreme Court in Mobike versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria that the UN Convention gave birth to the Act was not relevant. My verdict: it is feared that owing to the constitutional significance of this suit, which would ultimately see the exit of the affected agencies, their laws having not been rooted in the 1999 Constitution, agents of the federal government could be making frantic moves to interfere and put pressure on the Supreme Court not to do the right thing as far as this suit is concerned. I shall go to Rabbi again.
It's a deep because you hear this kind of case, you want to drink water on it before you can even comment.
Yeah.
But not to say that I am minded to enter to intervene from from an unconventional dimension, which is that we've seen the Supreme Court rule very creatively in several cases. Not least if we wanted to make reference to 1979. Shagari was a okay, we've had
Locust class.
I will call it that. You saw the case, the election dispute of last year.
Yes, yes.
How the Supreme Court creatively. So I think that this court has always, has always come. What's the word now? Has always come through with creative solutions. Maybe we should be begging them to save to save jobs, beg them to save families, beg them to, because of course they're in judicial activism and the judicial restraint, right? Maybe it's time for them to put on the activist caps and think of a creative solution to what's about to happen, because this will be a serious cataclysm.
To save jobs.
To save jobs and save lives and save families. So, because this is a seismic push that some people are making.
If you're saving jobs, saving families, at whose detriment?
No.
And at the future of Nigeria.
Hold on. They have done it at the detriment of the voter before. The courts generally, they have given all kinds of rulings.
No.
Don't begin with this one.
You can't sustain that. See, the truth is that.
That's why I said creative solution.
Lord Denning in USC versus Mark Ford said that in law, once a matter is void, it's a nullity. As you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand to collapse. The formation of the Efcc is faulty. There's no remedy here. The fact that Section 12 of the Constitution exists, the Constitution is supreme. Okay, look at the provisions of the Constitution, Section 12. Section 12 sub 1 says, if any law is influenced by a treaty, Because the EFCC was just UN treaty that was reduced into, it's the same word for word. If it is influenced by a treaty, Section 12 of the Constitution, subsection 3, says you need the concurrence of the State House of Assembly. Okay, that was not done. That is one. Section 12, subsection 2, empowers the National Assembly to make laws on issues not contained in the exclusive legislative list. You understand? So that is in line. Now, the fact that the EFCC Establishment Act came into existence without the second marriage or the second wife, which is the State House of Assembly's concurrence, the marriage ab initio was inchoate. Now, if protocols established by the constitutions are not followed, such institution will become void. And the implication, therefore, is that every conviction secured by the EFCC, every case undertaken so far and going, will be hereby declared null and void. And for those whom they have arrested, those whom they have prosecuted and found guilty, everyone should come out when the time is fully come, just like Scripture will say, to come and ask for compensation for every act of conduct. Because see, an institution of government that is not properly formed cannot fight corruption.
Can government undertake this mission? If
it's not a government, the court of law will make a ruling.
If that government went down, the weight of what it will raise.
You are using settlements to approach.
No, I'm just saying
that.
There's something called hold on. The fact that the state assemblies didn't say anything when the law came into effect.
You want to use blue pencil rule on this? You can't use blue pencil rule on this. The formation of the entire act.
You know what that means?
See, we are saying the entire.
They were silent. It was consent.
No.
So silence means
consent.
Silence also means agreement.
Hold on. If you take the EFCC Act, if there's any provision of it that contravenes the Constitution, you can use blue pencil rule. But when the Act itself, the extant law itself, did not follow constitutional provisions, it does not have fidelity. It's a promiscuous law that cannot stand the test of time.
So
it's going to die.
I think I'm looking at this promiscuous law now. There are some persons that will be rejoicing that this state should go in their favor because a lot of people, for example, let's just look at the Kogi State governor who is supposed
they want to limit the
not just Kogi State. Kogi State went to court. 15 other states joined the suit.
They have a reason for doing so.
Yes, 15 other states joined the suit. And
other governors.
Yes.
The other
states now. The attorney generals, attorney generals of states.
Without the government permission,
when the attorney general has gone,
I see that they enjoy in the joy is that it's like saying maybe even if it doesn't get the law is clear. So it has so just take it because the law says so. But I'm telling you that there is a creative way out of this quiet man. It's not as it is looking.
How is it looking? What's the creative way?
It's looking now.
The Supreme Court will give judgment, okay? We are not preempting what the Supreme Court is going to say. But we are saying from the baseline of law, formation is critical. So if you don't follow processes.
But the assemblies didn't say anything back then. It's consent.
No, hold on. The assemblies, democracy was fledgling in 2003. Okay? You understand? It is not for the Houses of Assembly to come and say something. It's for the National Assembly to pass it, but not pass it to the president until they have passed it to the State House of Assembly. You understand? So the states are now arguing that a law that came into existence without our concurrence, when the Constitution says our concurrence is required, an institution is not therefore formed. Why are you using that institution to investigate us?
But at this point now, we need to go to the root of this problem.
The root is where we are.
The roots. Now, who were those that were sitting that did not make them understand that this thing was supposed to pass through them?
No, National Assembly ought to understand that once they have passed it, they will pass it to the state. You understand? They left the state. The moment they passed it, they sent it to Obasanjo immediately.
And because Obasanjo was in the UN meeting where Article 36 of the UN Convention Against Corruption made that provision, before they left that convention where all member states signed, that section 36 was highlighted that every country, member state should go to their country, use this and form an economic and financial crime commission. Call it whatever name you want to call it, but the idea should be that you must combat economic and financial crime. Now they came and do that. Section 12 of the Constitution was there. They did not go look at what Section 12 is saying, that if a law have its offshoot from a treaty, you must comply with that. First, domestication, which is Section 12 sub 1, Section 12 sub 2 says the National Assembly can ratify. Then Section 12 sub 3 now says the National Assembly and the State House of Assembly concurrence is required.
At this point, I'm scared for this country because
Hold on. That was what the law said. We cannot sit here and make a pronouncement ex cathedra.
No, you have to.
The courts has to now interpret what it means. Because you see, fundamentally, there are certain things that determine that.
So for the assembly, what are these things? No, it's before the Supreme Court to decide. None of us here can decide what the Supreme Court will decide. But the truth is that the principles of law must be held in high esteem if we want to go forward. We cannot continue to run EFCC this way and think that this is little wonder they are not doing well.
And that's exactly the issue. You know, there's a plethora of legacies, if I call them that the ambassador bequeathed to Nigeria, that when you shape them, a lot to follow that whole architecture. Imagine that the EFCC was put together this way, and now 20-something years later, we're having to deal with the front foundation on which it was built. The other thing is that I think the governors also have the determination to make sure that the Achilles of all their colleagues who, once you leave office, the following day, the police, the AFC is behind you, also have them, because at the point, the AFC simply became an attack dog of sitting governments against the enemies.
So that's because they have evidence against them too.
Well, again, yeah, but the point is that today, does EFC enjoy organic Nigerian support by Nigerians?
No.
They don't, because I even read a story today saying that the EFCC convicted or prosecuted the Yahoo boys in Ilorin. If you want to face the truth, the real thieves are still the governors. But then, as bad as Yahoo Plus and Yahoo is, there are people who are under that Yahoo boys economic or financial coverage more than those who are still. So people are saying, okay, you are going after the smaller thieves, the smaller thieves, and you're not going after the big thieves. And funny enough, you find that, like in Port Harcourt, they went to arrest an NDLEA, a drug dealer. The community came up and fought ending people off. In Port Harcourt, they're not my trick. So you'll be surprised that when you keep going after the smaller fries, there are people who are saying, leave them alone, they are not your problem. If you come now and say police, there's a number of in the neighborhood, they will go away. Tell them that there's a Uber in a room somewhere, they will go there. No. So the EFCC has lost its national luster a long time ago. That's why you're not even seeing any uproar. Say, no, leave them. Because they long stop fighting in the interest of the common man. I think these are just the challenges that we've had with all of this common.
So that is it for today. That's all on The Middleman. You are especially invited to be part of the conversation by leaving your comments in the section and actually subscribing to our page on Enterprise TV 7. Our website can be reached at www.enterprisetvnews.com. Until we come your way again, thank you for being there for us. Bye.